Welcome to the Firebelly Social Show. We're focused on talking to food and beverage brands that are on a mission to make the world better.
Hey everyone, Duncan here with another episode of the Firebelly Social Show where I chat with founders and leaders of mission-driven food and beverage brands. And it's, let me tell you what, life is crazy. And this is one of my favorite things to do. And today we're diving into the bold and flavorful world of Irish whiskey with Aidan Mehigan. And he's a fun guy. He's kind of an enigma. He's a trailblazing founder of Natterjack Irish Whiskey. But before we get into all of that, a shout out to our sponsor, Firebelly Marketing. At Firebelly, we help mission-based food and beverage brands bring people closer together through social media marketing. So if you're ready to use social media to create more community, commerce, and excitement around your food and beverage brand, check out firebellymarketing.com. So yeah, I'm excited about Aidan Mehigan, founder and CEO of Natterjack. He's on a mission to disrupt the Irish whiskey category. Now, that is a big category, and he's taking a bold, forward-thinking approach to production. He's melding Irish and American aging techniques. And you know, whiskey people are very, very, very serious about this stuff. He's defying traditional norms, and he's a former London trader. Well, and he brings an unapologetic personality, which you can see all over their social, and bold flavor to the forefront with a smoother, more approachable whiskey for a new generation of drinkers. So they're making waves, and I can't get into it. I can't wait to get into it with you, Aidan. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Duncan, thanks for having me. Delighted to be here.
Absolutely. I mean, so many things on the top of my mind, but we'll try to start at the beginning. And
Sure.
you and me have a lot in common.
Okay.
I mean, I love whiskey,
Yeah, me too.
love whiskey, and we're both living the American dream and immigrants here in America. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Well,
how'd you get into this? What happened? I gotta know.
so I was, what's the best way I was 35 in London trading equities, and I had a good job. I had a really good team. I loved it. But I did realize I wanted something more. I wanted to build something. And that was the kind of starting point. And then I'd always worked in food and bev, and I loved waiting tables. I loved being a bartender. And I was like, is there something here for me? And like, what's my way to get into this industry, X trading, like other than buying stock in Pernod Ricard or Diageo? Like, how do I go back to what I really wanted to do and to interact with people and really get to that side of life? And I knew I had a favorite American whiskey. I knew I didn't like Scotch, and I knew I didn't have a favorite Irish whiskey. And I thought, well, maybe I should go and see if I can't make an Irish whiskey that I love. Now, that's easy to say. I had no experience making Irish whiskey, and I had no experience in the food and beverage space. But in the alcohol production space. But what that allowed me to do was come to it with a fresh pair of eyes, right? And so Irish whiskey it isn't anymore, but it was typically place names and surnames. It was Jameson or it was Tullamore Dew, right? They're the two big ones. And I didn't want to do that. Who's going to buy Aidan Mehigan's whiskey, right? Who cares? And then if you think about it on a global level, who knows where Monkstown, where I grew up, is? No one. I mean, does somebody in Philadelphia drinking Irish whiskey care about where I grew up? No, probably not. So it's like, how do I connect with this younger consumer? How do I get them to ask questions about the bottle? And with a friend of mine, Kelvin, who drew the toad, we came up with the toad, and it was a Natterjack toad, and that became our spirit animal because it struggles. And I knew this was going to be a hard road, right? I didn't think at any point did I think this was a get rich quick scheme, right? Whiskey is a long business. It is a mature business, and breaking into markets is really hard. Now, is it easier for Ryan Reynolds than Aidan Mehigan? Yeah, sure it is. But you can't really look to build a business the way celebrity accelerates business. If what you want to do is create a business that builds something that people want to work at, that provides a return for your investors and gets me to tell my story on a daily or weekly basis, that's a long process. It's not an overnight thing. And so then Natterjack was born as we decided to go down this path. And but look, I realized I didn't know how to make whiskey. So I went off on this journey to Breckenridge in Colorado. And I spent a month living with Jordan Vi, who's our currently our distiller at large or blender at large. And he taught me how to make it in Breckenridge Distillery. And then I had a plan for the flavor profile, and I can get into one of the dirty stories about that flavor profile down the line. But then I knew I wanted this whiskey that was called Natterjack. I wanted a big bold toad on the label so that people were like, what the hell is that? And I wanted a whiskey that people were like, is that Irish or is that something even better? Then it was kind of, is it a gateway drug to bourbon? But actually, no. And Duncan, this is the key point. I'm not going after Jameson. I'm not going to pick Tullamore Dew's pockets. I don't really care about them. They're going after a drinker. I'm not. I'm going after the drinkers that aren't drinking Irish whiskey at the moment. That's why we have this incredibly approachable whiskey that speaks to people, that isn't stuffy. It's not age statement. And it is just our way to try and connect with people who don't drink Irish whiskey at the moment.
I mean, that is phenomenal. So much to that story. I instantly remember working with a plant-based meat brand like 7 years ago, before
Yeah.
plant-based meat was a thing, and it was Abbott's, and she said, "I'm not trying to get people to stop eating meat. I'm trying to get people to try something new."
Mhm.
And it's like, you're not trying to convert. I mean, the Jameson people, I don't even know sometimes if Jameson people even like Jameson. It's kind of like I'm ordering a brand and I'm gonna drink it with my beer and I'm gonna shoot this Jameson, right? And you're right, it isn't the most interesting or approachable, as you say, whiskey, right?
Yeah, and that's what's interesting. When I meet those people that you're talking about, and I three of them spring to mind that I met in a bar, the Garage Bar in Grand Rapids in Michigan, and they all said it's lovely. Natterjack's lovely. I gave them a taste. We chatted about the story, and they were like, "It's really nice. It's better than JMO, but I'm probably not going to change. I've been drinking JMO with my beer every day for 10 or 15 years. I like it. Same price. That's great, but probably not going to change." And you're like, so you're not going to convince that person to change. But that same night, there was a table of four ladies sitting there, and I gave them all tastes, and they were like, that's much better than any Irish whiskey you've ever tasted. And I'd actually think I prefer it to bourbon. And then you're like, okay, there's four people who might actually change their minds and come with us. And so you've kind of lost the diehard JMO fans from the start, and that's fine. But, Nokia had diehard fans before the iPhone came out. So, there's plenty of ways, to skin a cat.
I mean, and listen, we don't even need to skin any cats. We just need people to get on the journey with the toad. And and what an interesting brand. I mean, it's not just a mascot, it is a symbol. And I was reading the story. I gotta ask, are you the toad?
There's elements of it, but actually there's elements to everyone on the team. But yeah, there are I do try and bring some of my personality through to the toad and some of the behaviors that the toad gets up to. But it's less about me than it is about
Of course.
a character with a glint in their eye. Basically, the toad is the person you want to go drinking with, that person who you're like, yes, let's go, let's make a bad decision, right? That's what it is, right? It's like, all right, we have responsibilities, but tonight let's make a bad decision. And that's kind of where it comes from. And that bad decision is generally like, we'll have another drink, let's get naked and run across a cricket field in Zimbabwe, whatever it is.
My gosh. I mean, and you were mentioning Monkstown, and I had to, when I was quickly looking that up. I mean, that is a beautiful place.
Gorgeous, yeah, and the reason the company's called Gertinor, Natterjack is the whiskey, but the company's called Gertinor. But the reason it's called Gertinor is I had to file a tax return, and so that was the name of my parents' house, and so I had about 6 hours, and I was like, I'll just call the company Gertinor, right? Done, Gertinor. So, but then that didn't really work because that was a place name, right? And we had to, if we're going to be, when you're building a brand, and you know this as much as I do, but you've got to be really strict about how that brand is, right? And what it stands for. And so if you've got Natterjack and Gertinor and a rum and a whiskey and a like it's too messy to tell a story early on. So Natterjack, so Gertinor is a corporate name. That's kind of what the company is called, but Natterjack is the brand. And so the Gertinor has come off the label. I think it's on the back because it's what we do business as. But yeah.
I mean, I gotta say, I'm 57, but let me tell you, I still love making a bad decision here and there. So
Oh, yeah.
I love because I don't even know if I'd say it's not for me. A bad decision is maybe an interesting decision. You know, we work with Filmland Spirits. They produce a bourbon and they have a very high-end bourbon. And out of the blue last Sunday, I took one of the bottles out. I never take bourbon out in the middle of the day. I think I have one bourbon.
Yeah.
It was two.
That's all right. That's all right. I've been that soldier.
I mean, and it was, I don't remember the last time I had drinks. I mean, we drink a lot less,
Yeah.
but man, it was fantastic to have a great drink in the middle of the day. So, I mean, I can't wait to join the Natterjack journey. And
But don't get, I got into drinking because drinking's great fun, right? It's not about looking cool. It's about the experience you have with people, right? It's why drinking alone is so much less fun than drinking with people, right? Because the laughter is better, the connection is more real, it's quicker. And I think that's the essence of the brand. It's about fun. And so when we were raising money, when we were in the shit, sorry, I didn't mean to create the
no,
kind
no, it's encouraged.
Okay, all right, that's fine. So we were in the shit back in the day, right? And I remember I had a call with this guy who was like, tell me more, talk to him about investment. And it got sent back to me what his feedback was. And his feedback was the only USP this brand has is that it has a toad on its bottle, it's got a virgin American oak finish, and your man Aidan thinks it's great fun. And I was like, and he said, so as a result, I don't think anything, it'll never come to anything. And it was like there was then three reasons why they wouldn't invest, right? And I was like, exactly, right? You've hit the nail on the head as to what I think is important about this brand. And you've said it's nonsense. And that company then released an Irish whiskey with a name, with an Irish surname. And I suspect, I don't know what they do in sales. I've never seen it on the shelf. But the point is, to that person, the mistakes that we were making were what made us stronger, right? They like in their eyes, they're like, there's nothing to this. And we were like, that's exactly what there is to this. And so you can't change an industry in any way if all you do is what everyone else has done. And if you lean on tradition too much, if you lean on tradition too much, you're a backward looking company rather than a forward looking company, and trends will pass you by. And I think that's really important for founders to think. The harder path is to do something different. That's not to say you don't learn from mistakes. And that's not to say you don't learn from great knowledge in the industry, right? So I didn't know how to make whiskey. I didn't know triple distilled was better than double distilled. Irish whiskey taught me that. There's geographical indicators. It's protected. When I go to a new market, they know what they're getting is quality. They're not getting some bath juice that I made in Monkstown that's going to send them blind. So all of those things are the industry is set up to help me, right? However, I shouldn't call it Mehigan's, and I shouldn't say it's eighth generation, whatever. It's 8 years old. It's like all of that is just tired nonsense. And some people will be good at it, sure. But I don't understand how you tell that story honestly, that you're charging $80 for a bottle of 8-year-old that is basically the same as everyone else's 8-year-old. I don't see how that's an interesting proposition.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that, I mean, look, I look at a lot of whiskeys and a lot of spirits in general, and the story is unique. I mean, it's a beautiful story. And maybe I'm weird or unique because I love a great brand with a great story. I mean, the product's got to be great, right? But the story is so great. And you take the bottle out, you're hanging out with your friends, and you're like, hey, I'm gonna make you one for the road, I believe is the suggestion.
Yeah, one for the toad.
Oh, one for the toad. Sorry, one for the toad. But we're not going to wait till the end of the night. We're going to start with that, pineapple and Natterjack. And what's the story with the Natterjack? Well, check out the toad and look at this guy. He came to America to do this. It's like, I love that. I mean, I think that that is such an exciting story. And I know that they encourage us not to have founders drive the brand forward, but why not? Why?
Yeah. And there is, look, there is an issue with founders driving brands forward when it comes to scale, right? There's only one of me. I can only go to so many events. Last year, I did 45 trips in 2024 around the US, right? So that, and it had me run ragged by the end of the year. Now we had a great year and great building of the brand and everything like that. But there's that has a shelf life. And so it is really important that the brand is a part of the personality that we have as an organization. Now, that's the organizational personality rather than mine. And that has to be central to the brand, but also the brand has to kind of stand on its own. It can't just be me giving a talk here, there, and everywhere. But that's a 3 to 5 year plan as you bring the personality of the toad to the fore. And then I move to maybe doing a little bit less of the voice work, but I love it. So I do it forever.
Yeah, and we have to talk a little bit about the whiskey just because I think I love the geeky like stuff, and it's triple distilled.
Yeah.
It's virgin American oak, and it's Irish whiskey with an American accent.
Yeah. So Irish whiskey is traditionally triple distilled. It doesn't have to be triple distilled, but it's traditionally triple distilled. And then in pot stills or in column stills, it can be either. And then spends 3 years in a wooden barrel on the island of Ireland, and then it's whiskey. It has to be distilled from grain. So that's Irish whiskey, right? That's the geographical indicator. And what we do is we put it for 3 years in ex-bourbon barrels. Most Irish whiskies do. That's pretty standard. And that's for 3.5 years. And then we take it out and we put it into virgin American oak for char number 4 for 1 year. And that is to extract as much of the color and as much of the vanilla notes, as much citrus as we can from that virgin oak. The thing is, bourbon utilizes virgin oak. Bourbon has to go into virgin oak. So they have a load of these barrels afterwards, after they've made their bourbon, and they sell most of them to Ireland and Scotland and globally now. But a lot of the extract is gone. If you think about it, like a bourbon that's a 5-year bourbon, that's extracted. And take Kentucky, bourbon doesn't have to be made there, but take Kentucky for an example. It can be 110 degrees during the summer and it can be 0 during the winter. That's huge expansion and contraction of the liquid within those barrels, which means huge extract. So when that barrel has been disgorged, it's then shipped to Ireland. We put in our new make spirit and it spends 3 years in Ireland, where temperatures on a hot day might get to 85 or 90, and on a cold day, maybe it's 30. Right? So the variations are much lower. So the extract is much lower. So you've got used barrels with less extract because less temperature variations. And then we have this kind of light gold liquid. And so there's ways you can go around that. Some people add caramel and caramel coloring. Some people put it into different finishing casks. So say a wine finishing cask, a Cabernet finishing cask or something like that will add some pinkness to the liquid. And virgin oak adds loads of gold, deep color. And so that's what the finishing process is. The reason for char number 4 is important is it cracks the inside of the barrel. And so the liquid that's expanding and contracting can get deeper into the woods. You get more extract.
That's amazing.
We don't have a distillery. So that's full disclosure. We purchase the liquid and then we do all the finishing, blending and bottling, etc. ourselves. So,
I mean, I'm excited, very excited to have it. So I can't wait.
Have we not sent you some yet?
No, not yet. But hey,
Okay.
it just increases. And listen, I'll tell you what. I'm so curious to know because I waited long enough. What are you excited about right now? I mean, you are an excitable guy in general, right?
Yeah.
What is particularly? I mean, is there an event? Is there something release? Is there a new market?
It's a great question, right? So what I'm excited. So since I moved to the States in 2023, right? We realized distribution channels were wrong. So we had to part ways with certain distributors and get with new distributors. We needed spirits distributors because wine distributors don't go to the right places, right? That's not interesting. That's just something we had to do. And then we went with a kind of a shared rep model that didn't really work. But what we did do towards the end of last year is we started to hire our own full-time brand ambassadors in Florida and in Texas. And so when you say, what am I excited about? I'm excited about what they have done for brand awareness over the 3 to 6 months they've been with us. And also what they're doing for building community in the areas that they are for us to really get to know and interact with our consumer base. So from our company perspective, growing that team and growing that community is really exciting. And on the whiskey side, we screwed up and made this whiskey, which is called The Mistake. I think it's our best whiskey. I forgot about 46 barrels. This was what came out of them. It's amazing. And we're releasing it. It was so good, and we know the recipe, that we're releasing a permanent fixture. So these are the limited edition bottles. There were 46 casks, and we've got a new one coming out. I'm really excited about how The Mistake is probably, in my eyes, a better whiskey than Natterjack Blend 1. And I'm just interested. I'm excited to see how it sits in the markets we're in. So I'm pretty excited about that.
That is fantastic. And I love the fact that you said the word community, right? I mean, community is a concept that not a lot of brands actually embrace. They want community, but they don't embrace it, right? And so I think that's, especially when you think about, gosh, I just had this conversation last week with your friend, Grant Hemingway, Libby, about.
They do an incredible job over at Libby. Yeah, they're really good.
Hey, shout out to them, and shout out to Mindy for,
Mindy does a great job as well. Yeah.
And I think that, he talked about community. He talked about, hey, it's like, this is a critical piece of the equation. It's like building community. So I'm so excited. I lost my original point, but
but I think isn't that the logical conclusion of talking about drinking with friends? I mean, I think when you look at a lot of the issues people have, a lot of them come from isolation on a personal level, mental health issues, all this sort of stuff. Lots of it comes from isolation and not from community. And as we spend more time on our computers and on our phones, and this isn't a criticism, I use my computer and phone all the time, but I try when I'm with my family or with friends to not be interacting with it, because we need that community. And what is better in community is sharing food and drink. And that's a huge thing in our family, right? So food and drink and, glass of wine with dinner and those sorts of things, and a whiskey at the end. And I think that community is what we try and have as a company, as a family, as a company, and also with our sales partners, our retailers, because they're the front line of it. And a huge amount of my time when I go to market is spent meeting people. So that can be 10 accounts in a day, because people remember if you come to see them. And let me tell you, in where was I? Norman, Oklahoma. I had which is where Oklahoma State University. One of the Oklahoma universities is in this place called Norman. And I remember I've been back there 2 or 3 times. Each time I've gone back, there's this one store, and they're like, Aidan, how are you? Every time you're here, you come and see us. Natterjack does incredible for us here in this off-prem. And you're just like, people, this business, more than most, is a relationship business, and people forget it, right? Picking up the phone can save you money. And that's kind of, picking up the phone can make you a sale, and picking up the phone can tell your story. And that's, we're in the business of telling stories.
Yeah, I love that whole everything you just said. And I remember now why I was sending you down that path, is because Grant said, we were both talking about how drink is social glue. Whether you're drinking a non-alcoholic wine, whether you're drinking a coffee, whether you're drinking Natterjack, it's like, it is social glue, right? You're standing there in your hand. And I particularly love your approach, because I know that you value laughter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And watching your videos on Instagram, it's like you're laughing all the time. You're jumping into the water and you're laughing. You're going to meet people and you're laughing, and you're having a drink and you're laughing. And I think that is such a, and the fact that the Toad is, not everyone's first choice probably, but the toad is memorable.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the fucking toad can walk.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
never hop.
Incredible. But it's better to be born lucky than good, right? And I've been lucky in some of the decisions. So the toad is incredible. One, because people love toads. Duncan, I'll be honest with you. I don't fucking know that. I actually like the toad came around because Kelvin said there's an Irish toad. How about I draw you one of those? And I was like, okay. I didn't know anything about toads. And so but people love them. Like they'll come and they want the brand. They want the t-shirts and the hats and they want the mini toads we have made and and so people interact with the toad like that. But then the story gets them kind of going as to why the toad makes sense. And sorry, I just want to go back to one point you said about what you're discussing with Grant, right? About eating and drinking being social glue. Because I'm going to tell you a funny story about this in a second, but because they anchor you to a place, right? If you think about it, historically, the water cooler was where people talked about that's that old American thing, right? It's like, oh, drink at the water cooler. Did you see late night with whomever last night? People are they're drinking water. Coffee shops now are having electric music dance parties as a different generation has Saturday morning dance offs and all this sort of stuff, right? And so because having a coffee with someone anchors you for a period of time, and the idea then is you have their attention for that period of time, which is what we want. It's what companies are fighting so much for our attention that it is being eroded to a greater or lesser extent. But that's what you're going with for a coffee with someone. If you give someone the time to go for a coffee, it means you're engaged with them, right? So just tell you a very funny story about that. My dad once went to my granddad to a party. My granddad was famous for having nights out and carousing and all the rest of it. And my father's uncle, Gussie, said to him, or dad said to Gussie, he said, Granddad's going to, his dad, he's going to be here for a bit. I've given him a pint of Guinness. It's an anchor. And Gussie looked over at him as my granddad finished the pint in 2 gulps. And he said, I think he swallowed the anchor. So so food and drink is an anchor in some ways, but not for my granddad who was well able to swallow them. Yeah.
And yeah, you have such a cool team. I guess shout out to your team, Scott Moran. Is that how you say
Yeah,
it?
Scott Moran. Yeah. Scott and Dave in Dublin. Then we've got Grant, who heads up sales globally, but he's based in Dallas. And we've got Amanda based in Tampa in Florida. And we've got Charles Chuck he's in Austin here with me. And then we have Caitlin in Tampa as well. And we've got Zach in the panhandle of Florida, which, by the way, I was in the other day and it has this nickname of the Redneck Riviera and all this sort of jazz. It's an amazing place. I was in a place called Seaside, Florida, which has some great accounts for Natterjack. And my God, I'm taking the family back there on holidays. Like the States has so many hidden gems that people don't really think about going to. So I was pretty taken with that place.
Awesome. And also Jordan, right? Jordan is your...
Oh, Jordan's amazing, but Jordan's legendary in the industry, right? Like his palate is extraordinary. So in order to blend Natterjack, because Jordan was living in Colorado, I'd fly to New York and we'd meet and we'd go to a bar, we'd give them a bottle of whiskey and say, we're just doing some blending, we'll buy some beers and some lunch or whatever, but do you mind if we do this here? And that's how Natterjack was born. That's how the flavor profile was born, was me flying over probably illegally with a load of whiskey in my suitcase for whiskey samples for us to blend and get what that flavor profile was. And the moment we knew what we wanted, Jordan was then able to put together the liquid to go into the barrels for us to get the flavor profile we wanted. So Jordan's a genius. Yeah.
Amazing. That's amazing. And I mean, look, I love rebel and troublemaker, which is one of the things you guys talk about. I love that. I mean, we need disruption. We need chaos. At our company, we talk about, Lauren talks about, our VP talks about organized chaos. And I'm like, if you don't stay in that, I mean, you talk about your mistake, it's like, and you're like, holy shit, this is amazing. Let's do more of this, right? Because you miss too much, right? I'm going to quote one of your countrymen. You miss too much if you stop to think, right? It's a famous Bono.
Yeah.
So before we talk about Irish music, how do you take care of yourself, Aidan? You have so much energy. You're driving so many things. Like what fuels you? How do you stop? How do you refuel?
I have an incredible wife. I have an incredible family, and she is very good at getting me to take some time. when I agree to it. But I cycle, I keep fit. I try not to travel every week. That's sometimes like I'm going to Chicago on Sunday for 2 days and that sort of stuff. We've got a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 0-year-old. So it's busy here. But I think in order, the energy and drive, I'm a very optimistic human being, right? So one of the things we were talking about before we started the recording was, in order to head up a small company that is growing, you have to have a very strange mix of talents. I am with everyone. I'm not a micromanager, right? Grant does his thing and he's incredible at it. Scott does his thing, he's incredible at it. David the same. Amanda, Caitlin, Zach, Chuck, they're all brilliant. I don't micromanage them because I'm not good at what they do. However, I have to wake up in the morning, see a disaster, give Faye a kiss, get with the kids, try and sort out said fire or disaster, report back to the board to say everything's okay, the fire disaster. The one I'm thinking about is one of our containers in February, one of our busiest months, got stuck in Antwerp. So what we have, we've no product, we've none of the mistakes, so how we can't sell it. So you couldn't do this if you were a pessimistic human being. You have to go and, like a truffle pig, look for optimistic moments in all the shit because there's loads of shit. And the shit ends today, Duncan, and that'll be amazing. And tomorrow it'll be fucking something else. And there is not, and so like sometimes, and it's largely when you're in the shower, because I think that's probably where everyone's most themselves because there's no one in there with you. So you're just like, what the fuck is going on? As we were saying, it's like 10 things in a row. You're like, why is this so difficult? But then if you strip it back, right? And this is something I learned from investing. You strip it back when a problem happens. You're like, so what's changed here? The company's still good. Our trajectory is still great. We've got some tariff issues we now have to address in our cash flow. That's going to cause us some hassles. But the broad trajectory has not changed. Therefore, how am I going to react to this? Am I going to freak out? Usually no, but I think if you got Faye on here, she'd tell you there's been a couple of freakouts over the years, and I suppose that's normal. Yeah. I'll own my part in them. But I think that's it. And I think I remember when I was working at a fund in London, a fraud, one of our big positions became a fraud. And I remember Lloyd, my old boss, is still a great friend of mine. He took the news and he walked away and there was no excitement. He's like, let's look at the situation. And that's what you have to do. And if you do that, you can maintain optimism because you're trying to look at things rationally. If you're reactive, you couldn't stay, you'd lose your mind. So I try not to be reactive. That doesn't always work, but that's the overarching plan.
Yeah, I mean, and that is such a great. I mean, I know you're self-described as an eternal optimist, and I share a lot of those qualities with you. But what people don't realize is that optimists also assess what's going on, and they have to also battle so that other people on the team are buffered, right? You're the leader. It's like you're the lightning rod in a lot of ways. Yeah. And I love it that you mentioned your wife, you mentioned your family, you if you're working out, you're obviously sleeping too, which how many founders just missed that? I can't even tell you, Aidan, how many founders, when I asked that question, it's like, yeah, I don't do a very good job of that. And it's like, shit. So
I got up at 5:30 this morning and creeped over a child who'd somehow ended up in our bed and went downstairs and did a workout. And that gets your energy going for the day. You're right. You have to look after yourself. You've got to stay fit and find out what works for you. Right. I think Faye was, I think I went to a circle of men that was a kind of a group or something like that. And it just didn't really work for me. I didn't vibe with the people. And so that wasn't a way for me to kind of manage my stress. But what I did find was in getting more exercise and in spending more actual time with the kids, things became better. But also when you work in alcohol, you don't actually drink that much because you still got meetings and everyone wants to go for a pint with you. Duncan, there's a list as long as my arm when you go to Chicago. It's like, let's go for a drink. I'll meet you for a whiskey, all those things. But there's 10 people. I can't go for 10 whiskeys. So it's funny. If I have time, I'll tell you a story about China, though. I went to China This was back in 2019. Amazing trip. It was our big market. I turned up a screw up in whiskey going through the Panama Canal that caused all the bottles to explode because we'd only put wax on them. We hadn't put a PET a plastic closure on. And so I was out to the market to meet the distributor and everything, and they put in a big order to make up for the order that had exploded, all this jazz, right? And I get there and I'm giving a talk, and I'm giving a talk in Qingdao in China. And it was I had no idea. Like, I can make a room of Americans or a room of British people, a room of Irish people maybe laugh, right? I'm a decent at telling our story. However, in China, it was, to quote Bill Hicks, it was like I'd shown a dog a card trick. I had no idea if it had landed. I had no idea if they thought I was just some maniac. There seemed to be a confusion as to how many toads were in each bottle. There was this whole thing. It was just a disaster, right? So then afterwards, Mr. Wang, he was like, this guy here speaks English. So this guy goes, oh, I went to medical school at Harvard and I'm about to fuck you up. And I was like, that is an American accent. All right. Okay. And he's like, and he got all these people. And it's tradition that you have to have a drink with everyone that you've engaged with. There was 60 people there. So I'm not having a whiskey with 60 people. So he was like, and this person he brought over, because he knew this tradition, he kept bringing people over. And I was on my 8th whiskey and I was like, I'm out, right? They can't do this. I'm putting it in plants and yeah. So China's a funny place.
I mean, that's a good tradition, but God,
amazing.
Don't have more than 2 people in the room. Jeez.
Correct, right? 60 people. No.
Now, look, I mean, I have to do this, right? Because I'm a music head and I suspect you are too. I mean, Ireland has way more of its fair share of amazing music, right?
Yeah, it does. And it's got a really good, I mean, I haven't lived in Ireland for a while now, but when I was living there, the live music scene is pretty cool. Like, but I remember the big concerts of, I'm showing my age now, but there was a concert called Witness that Guinness sponsored. And some of those weekends away were some of the greatest, just the greatest concert experiences I've ever had. I mean, I've been to Glastonbury and I've been to the Isle of Wight and all those sorts of things, but these were in Ireland, they cut a little bit different.
I mean, I'm saying everything from, I mean, my personal music choices, My Bloody Valentine, The Pogues, Clannad. I mean, Van Morrison. I mean, Van Morrison is very grumpy, but you still got to love what he's done.
But I still think, isn't it Gypsy Soul as just one of my favorite songs, right? Like, I just think, and it reminds me of my wife, but yeah, like there's just an incredible depth of talent in Ireland on the music scene.
Don't forget the Cranberries. Into the Mystic, man. If I'm in
Into the Mystic, that's it. Sorry, yeah.
I want a drink in my hand and to put Into the Mystic on the jukebox. It can't just serendipitously come on. It has to be put on.
Yeah. That song requires a particular mood, right? Like it's a very intentional song. Yeah.
I remember in my, lots of mistakes days, that song always came on like around 12:15 at night, 12:30. You've had a few drinks, you're feeling good, and it just stops you. It makes you think. And it's like,
yeah, on a summer's evening, like just absolutely. To talk about those times of mistakes, that's what was so strong with me for calling it the mistake, because I think what we discussed at the time was, let's make it Aidan's Founder Reserve, because people love that sort of stuff. It's the whiskey you always wanted to make. And I was like, well, that's bullshit, right? Like, we fucked up. Let's own the fuck up. Because one thing everyone in the world can relate to is a mistake. That's it. Like, not everyone can relate to the toad. Not everyone can relate to me. So we once, when we hired Scott, I remember, this isn't a secret, I've said it to Scott, but we were hiring and we were talking about him, obviously, as you do when you're hiring. And I was like, I think Scott's amazing. There's an English phrase called, is he a Marmite character? As in, does people love or hate him? And I was saying this to one of the people who worked at the time, and she was like, Aidan, so are you. And I was like, okay, maybe he's bang on brand. And it turns out Scott's much more likable than me, but that was kind of to the point of, this brand isn't that. Well, it's not for everyone. Some people don't want, some people don't want a toad. Some people don't want Natterjack, and some people don't want Irish whiskey that's finished in virgin American oak, and that's fine. We're not going after.
But I think but the flip side of that is I'd rather be beloved to a few than loved by everybody, right?
Yeah,
And I think that you can say that about successful companies and successful brand, kind of like cults, right? It's like you find those few people that fall in love with your brand, and man, that's the best marketing. They're going to go out and tell everyone they want to buy the product for you. They want to serve it at their house. They're going to tell you, do you know, what do you think of this? And so I think that is amazing.
yeah, but isn't that right? I mean, it's the charismatic leader point, right? It's people, and that's kind of why I spend so much time in market, is spending time with people so that they can kind of understand the what it means, and then take some of that off when they tell our story to 10 other people.
That's amazing, and thank you for this amazing conversation. I feel fired up. I was kind of having a moment myself, and so having this conversation and connecting with someone that has your fire in your belly.
You'll get there, Duncan. Don't worry about it. You'll get there.
I mean, thank you so much, Aidan, founder of Natterjack Irish Whiskey. I hope you all enjoyed learning how Aidan is shaking up the whiskey world with fearless flavor, and what a brand story. Aidan, thank you for making the world better, my man. Also, let's remind people to buy Natterjack Irish Whiskey and shop their offerings. Head over to natterjack.com, right?
Yeah. And we ship to the US and globally. So yeah, just log in and buy as much as you can.
Yeah. And as you're a mission-driven food or beverage brand looking to elevate your social media presence, Firebelly Marketing is here to help you. Visit firebellymarketing.com. Thank you again, Aidan, for your amazing story and your happy vibes. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode of the Firebelly Social Show. Until next time, keep it going. Have a great drink. Get some social glue, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for listening to the Firebelly Social Show. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.